welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server, so welcome one and all.
How are you?
Alright, I'm a bit down in the dumps. I did a funeral on Tuesday, which is why there wasn't any live shows at the beginning of the week. Never much fun when it's your own family, but there we go, such is life. Life goes on. How are you?
I'm good. And you have, what is that, 4 stages, 5 stages of grieving? How'd that go again?
What are the 5 stages of grief? You want me to look them up?
Yeah. No. I'm just saying there's 5 stages of it. So I went through them back to back to back to back when my mom and dad, and Sarita's mom died. It was that crazy. But, yeah, at first you celebrate the life that they had, but then it starts to weigh on your mind that the person responsible for me being here is no longer here. So you get through it.
Yeah, you got denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Well, that's a great way to start a live show. I'm glad we went through that. Thank you very much.
Well, we could talk about what Duffy just put out, the lying bastard.
Your concerns should have been dissolved in the pre-show. So for the audience's benefit, Neil's concerned that Duffy's a liar because he's going around talking about invitations that I've turned down that I haven't. Now, when he did it the first time and suggested that I turned down an invitation that he'd offered me, it's like, okay, show me this email exchange where I've turned down an invitation. You're a liar. Now he's gone from that to suggesting that there was a further invitation after that, slightly detached, but basically the same lie. You're like, okay, Earth's measured flat. One of their number measured it flat and then got told 100 times he'd measured it flat. He got told 100th for the 100th time while he was in Antarctica, shockingly, measuring Earth flat. He's measuring elevation angles to the sun down there. They all were. They levelled their tools to a plane of reference and then measured Earth flat in various different ways. Now, me pointing that out, what's that? He didn't come and he got an invite. Who cares? The argument's about whether or not Earth's flat. They need to position it as a false dichotomy, where you've got a azimuthal equidistant North Pole-centric globe projection being presented as the flat Earth false dichotomy side, and you've got a globe that doesn't exist in model format with any map on it for the globe side. And that false dichotomy is, if it's a globe, then we'll see a 24-hour sun. If it's not, then it's flat. And it weren't, so it ain't flat, and the people who said it was flat said that if they didn't see, or did see, a 24-hour sun, it meant it was or wasn't flat, depending on their position. Okay, now let's get something absolutely clear. I don't give a toss what they said. What did they measure? A flat Earth? Well, that's all that matters, doesn't it? What did they measure? Elevation angles to the sun. That's a flat Earth measurement. Okay. How did they get there? On a plane that measured Earth flat in terms of its straight and level flight, measured off sea level, that we can show with pitch data. So Earth's measured flat for the journey to Antarctica. And what direction was Antarctica? South? Look at a compass. It's flat. It's only an existent direction on a flat surface. That's what south is. So you're travelling how far? South? How far being a linear mile or kilometre distance that requires the surface be flat. So we've got quite a few flat Earth prerequisites that I'm pointing out to the guys down. in Antarctica? No, down isn't south. Look at what a compass represents with that little S. It ain't pointing downwards, you dumbos. Miles aren't curving, you dumbos. You measured Earth flat there, with elevation angles, you dumbos. What's that? Nathan got an invite and didn't come. Okay. Yeah, that's called a straw man. I've got an argument, and my argument is there's no discussion here because you measured Earth flat. It's less of an argument and more a statement of finality in regards to what Earth is. Flat, because that's how everyone measures it, including but not limited to the dum-dums in Antarctica, who say, if people say it ain't flat, it ain't flat. What about your flat measurements that you took then? Are you going to toss those out? Because you've been calling them experiments. Bunch of clowns. Yeah, those quote-unquote experiments are just flat Earth measurements, you bunch of dumbos. So don't go on about what Nathan didn't accept. Accept what you measured, because you measured Earth flat. Okay, are we all clear how little of a toss I give about what they say Nathan did or didn't accept in regards to them going down and measuring a flat Earth for us? Yeah, well done, I didn't have to leave the comfort of my seat, did I? Yeah? When I was being yelled at by Toon, this is how I sat, just like this, with my feet up. While he yelled, "Where are the guns?" I had my feet up. It was lovely and warm. And what was he doing? Was he humiliating me by showing there was no guns stopping their very planned trip down there? No, he was measuring flat Earth elevation angles to the sun. And then he proactively contacted me and I damn well told him he measured Earth flat. He hung up. This is McToon. To tell his audience, he tried to deflect with measurements. Did I need to go anywhere? Nah, I'm good. I'm all right exactly as I am with my feet up. This is how I've been doing the show for the last 10 years. I think I need to go to Antarctica. No thanks. Not that you invited me. Not that I declined anything. Not that you'll ever see an email exchange between me and Will Duffy. No such email exists. He's been lying about it for quite some time. But that's not the argument. It's a deflection and straw man away from the fact they measured Earth flat there and travelled over a flat Earth to get there, that it was graphed and the direction was south. That's flat. Everything about every aspect that they did in terms of measurement required levelling tools to planes of reference. You're a bunch of idiots. The discussion never existed to begin with. It's not like it's over. That's a gross exaggeration. You can't end something that doesn't have a beginning. There was no argument to begin with, because the argument started with Earth that was measured flat to suggest we were on a ball. It's absolutely pathetic when you look back at it and assess how you got on to be on the ball. Now, when you're really deep in it, like knee deep in that garbage, you'll say things like, Earth's just so big we measure it flat. Yeah. What you actually mean is, I am such an indoctrinated globe-believing numpty that when I declare how we are measuring Earth as a flat plane of reference, a flat surface, a flat measurement, it's just because it's really, really big and non-flat when we measure it flat, because I'm indoctrinated into believing it's a ball. So when I actually measure it flat, I'll say because it's really big. Meanwhile, I'm a big old slap in the face of that garbage, aren't I? You bunch of numpties. I'm humiliating you by pointing out every measurement you ever present to me ever, or past tense, every measurement ever presented to me ever, required Earth be measured flat to even suggest there was an argument to have. Looking back, we engaged in a non-discussion unnecessarily. Quite embarrassing when you think about it from our point of view, because we won without even realising it. The second they started talking about any measurements of Earth ever, we'd won. Because all measurements of Earth were always flat, and we just didn't even realise it when we started talking about things like distances and sea levels, and surface levels, and level flight. It's like, yeah, all these things mean something, and I've got measurements attached to them. And what do they mean? Earth's flat.
No, we were looking for Earth curve. That's the problem. Back then, we were whistling right past it. Yeah, but they're trying to present it like, okay, now that it's over and I've ended it with the final experiment, now we have people on the outside looking in saying, well, these flat earthers that are still flat earthers, I'll pay for them to go. and that's where your name came in. And he said that you refused. So he's a liar.
I mean, no one's approaching me with money. The last person who claimed to approach me with money, I think I put a really measly price tag on it, like $50. And he didn't come. No, don't get me wrong. In the meantime, I think it was, I can't remember, you'll have to remind me. You can probably remember the arbitrary figure I put on when I got back in touch with Ranty and said, yeah, okay, $50. I'll go through your email. I haven't got the time, but if you pay me. Did he pay me? Did he bollocks? Of course not. No one's offering me jack, right? I struggle to pay my mortgage, that's why I have to flog bleeding microphones. Very irritating. I'd much prefer to actually just make the money from what I do. You want to talk to me about flat Earth and Antarctica? Give me money then. And I won't have to sit here buying microphones and selling microphones and going down to Craig to get them modified to add a few bucks of value to something that is cheap and cheerful. That's what I have to do to make ends meet. And people are like, oh, yeah, we'd pay Nathan to do blah, blah, blah. Okay, where's the money? Show me the money. It doesn't exist. They're all liars. No one wants to actually face me, let alone pay me to get pummeling with their own bloody measurements. Listen to what Toon said in response to me when he actually plucked up the courage to call when he thought he was in the strongest position ever from Antarctica. What did he do? Hung up the phone with the following words. He tried to deflect to measurements. Yeah, you're bloody right, I did. Your measurements, son. Your flat Earth measurements. Yeah? No one's giving me money. I'm not on Queer Street struggling to pay my mortgage because people are paying me to get a pummeling on the globe side. Now, are they? They just want to make it seem like, oh, we've even offered him money and he still doesn't want to come. Oh, how very clever of you, lads. Doesn't alter that I've got the position to just take anything you put at me and say, there's the flat Earth you measured in your suggested to be experiment. Now, it's got flat Earth in it measured right there. You see it? He tried to deflate with measurements. Where are the guns? Yeah, that's what you've got. Well, I'm sat here like this. Yeah, with my feet up. Yeah, you've got to go to Antarctica to affirm the consequent in false dichotomy. I can sit here with my feet up and prove Earth's measured flat. I can do it in one word. Miles. Game over. One word. Miles. Earth's flat. Done. Proof positive. You're going to overcome miles? Nah, never. Earth's flat for miles. Same goes for kilometres, same goes for heights. Same goes for any Earth measurement ever. I'll still have my feet up. You'll be down in Antarctica. Down? Down? I'm pretty sure south's over there if you haven't ever looked at a compass. I can debunk the clowns who went to Antarctica with a compass. That's not south, lads. You bunch of numpties. Oh, hey, Brian. It's because I've got all the windows up. It's too hot to have the second screen, so everything's overlapping. I didn't see you join. Hello.
No worries. I don't know if you're hearing a bit of background noise. Windows open in the car I'm driving here. Just listening in. I don't know.
I didn't know you drove.
I enjoyed your video you did yesterday. Sorry?
I said I didn't know you drove.
Yeah. I drove it.
They have cars there.
Yeah. Yeah, we've moved away from the horse and cows.
You bastard. You took my punchline. You knew what was coming.
The video yesterday, yeah, it's like I'm calling out the same things about that particular video, about that thing. It's just like, yeah, just focus on the measurements of the mountain. You know what I mean? Forget about all the rest of it nonsense. Yeah, that's how it's measured. This is what it needs to be. Need a horizontal, between you and wherever that your feet and wherever that intersects the mountain. And you need a vertical height then above that horizontal. You know what I mean? And then, there's no way around it. That's it. No need to complicate matters.
Well, Neil summarised the complication of those matters quite nicely before you and I just had that conversation, which is to say what they need, they being the powers that should not be, the hidden hand, the bullshit shillery that we have no way of proving, right? If you want to pretend there's a they is really just us with the best of intentions. But if you want to pretend there's a hidden hand, right, what they need is to create the impression that there's an argument about where Earth curve is. Is there enough of it? Too little of it? Make everything about Earth curve. Then if both sides are saying, well, if Earth's flat, then is the measured only on a flat Earth angle to the mountain. But if Earth's a ball, then the measured only if Earth's flat with an angle would be smaller because it's a ball. We've got a more limited angle that's only capable of measuring on a flat Earth, said nobody in the discussion for 10 years. It's just, on a ball, the angle would be smaller. On a ball, there's no angle. On the ball, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So just measure a bit of flat Earth
That's it.
and then move forward with your ball belief. Sod that. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, but that's all it is. It's a lot of hijacking of reality. You know, like questions like I get questions like, so what angle would you predict on a flat Earth for this? It's like, what angle are you trying to hijack?
The funny thing is the flight on their way over, Nathan, you said it, they were proving flat Earth, but they're too ignorant. Anyway, he's doing a live show right now. I told him, get your butt in here. You defended yourself when Brother Sanchez brought it up. But now we're bringing it up, Duffy. You know how to join. Come and join.
For what now? I said I don't care.
For what?
Yeah, I mean,
what?
if he
What's
wants
the
to,
purpose
he
of
can
Duffy?
come and join the show, and pain is the general objective of most people who join from their side. Come and share your pain, fine. But for what?
The funny thing is, everybody in chat is dogging him. I thought it would be a pro-global chat. They're all mocking him in chat.
What are they saying to him?
Let's see. At one point in time proves that this whole channel is dead. It does not matter at different points in the day or anything. Just at this one point when most people are more than likely in better sleep. Okay, here's another one. Wonderful Duffy the Deceiver. 5 viewers say a lot. This channel is dead.
Which channel? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Will Duffy, he's on the TFE. That's what it's called.
Yeah, when you
He's got a channel now.
if you say something like, "This is the last time I'm going up Everest. It's the final expedition, the last hurrah, the last time we're going to need to do it, or we'll do it," and then you do it, and then you come back, and let's be honest, Duffy, it's because I'm here, isn't it? Yeah, saying Earth's measured flat and you measured it that way. That's why you need to do a final experiment. Lone Rangers, right? We're still here pointing out that Earth's measured flat, and Will's like, everyone's gone, it's been a mass exodus. Yeah, they left your channel by the sounds of things. Over here, it's still measured flat, though. I mean, I don't care how many people are watching. It's kind of irrelevant. It's a non sequitur to the winning section of the perceived to be debate that never really existed to begin with. There wasn't really a debate. There just had to be this impression of a debate created, because if you've just got Earth being measured and people look at how it's measured, they'll go, well, it's just measured flat. How could we ever possibly believe it's a ball? Well, the answer is you can't. So how do you get around that little problem if you're telling them it's a ball from birth? Well, you get them to argue about whether or not it's a ball if they ever ponder the idea that generally Earth is as it's measured. Now, if you ponder it and somebody around you points out that, oh no, it's a really, really, really big ball, therefore you can measure Earth flat, but it's a really, really, really big ball, you know. You just have to understand that contradiction in terms when we measure it flat. And should anybody challenge you that that Earth that we've measured flat is flat because they believe it's flat, chastise them and call them idiots and tell them to drink bleach and never reproduce. Because if they just believe it's flat, when we are measuring the really big ball flat to show you how ball-shaped it is with the calculations that we make after we measured it flat, then those flat Earth believers need to understand that when they say we see too far, they're just idiots, those flat Earthers saying we see too far. I'll explain how it's just perfectly far enough when we're looking for Earth curve. But flat Earthers, those are the people who say we see too far. They're the people who say that we aren't seeing Earth curve. There should be Earth curve in the way of these buildings. That's what Earth curve is to the flat earthers that we all call idiots. So now you've got a nice little powers that should not be, example earlier notwithstanding, where there's an imaginary bunch of people creating a false dichotomy. It's not, it's just us. And in this instance, us is Will Duffy, creating that false dichotomy. Okay, well, your false dichotomy still comes with a heavy dose of flat Earth measurements every time Earth gets measured. I'm done.
Well, here's the funny thing. He's broadcasting from Celebrate Truth, which was Robbie Davidson, and he was supposedly a flat earther. He was probably a flat earth believer. I like how one guy is holding up the scripture because Will Duffy says he's a pastor. And this guy, Frosty Bud 777, says, in the book of Joshua, it is written that the sun stood still and the moon did not move for about a whole day when the nation avenged itself on its enemies. The sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance upon its enemies. Is this not written in the book of Joshua? So it's also in another book.
Hold on a second. So it says, to paraphrase slightly, Earth stopped.
No, it says the sun and the moon. So the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed.
Yeah,
Going down about
Neil,
a full day.
You're just not a good Christian. You're not reading between the lines correctly. When it says the sun stopped, what it means is Earth's a ball in heliocentric motion developed by Copernicus after these words were written, and that mathematical extrapolation that we reify in modern times means Earth's a ball and it stopped. You're just not reading between the lines, Neil. You're not understanding me.
But listen, the end says when the Lord, it says there has not been a day like it ever since. So no, the earth did not stop. But what's his name? Danny Faulkner says the same thing. He said what actually happened was the earth stopped moving, but they just didn't know the earth was moving back then. They were just dumb cavemen or something.
Sorry,
who
just out of interest, when he says that they just didn't understand that, who's the Bible penned by? Is it penned by just dickhead men, or is it the Word of God?
Yeah, it's the Word of God written by
just
holy
to be clear,
men.
Danny Faulkner says it's penned by who? Some dumb idiots that didn't know that the earth was turning when they read between the lines of the words of God. I see, Danny Faulkner. That's fascinating. Fascinating. Heathen. Himsake. Shout out to you, my friend. She says, good to see you, Nathan. Shout out to Brian. Don't let him catch you riding dirty. What's that mean?
It means don't let him catch you with driving too fast with a gun, with drugs.
Without a license.
Yeah, anything like that.
I see. Because I'm such a clean, honest, upstanding and respectable citizen, I don't understand this terminology. I see.
Remember that you said it was alive? Will Duffy was live on the TFB channel. That's what you said, Neil.
It's Celebrate Truth, Robbie Davidson. So they're allowing him to broadcast from there. Who knows? Robbie Davidson probably gave him his channel. But that's where this TFE, that's where Will Duffy is live right now, spewing nonsense.
Wow, Will Duffy is on. That's like a humiliation ritual, isn't it? To have Will Duffy on your, sorry about the noise, Will Duffy on your channel broadcasting live. That's a humiliation. That's all you could call it.
Yeah, but this is supposed to be like that. I told you already. There's supposed to be an idea that there's been a disbandment or whatever you want to call it, exodus, right? So if you've got people in the chat say dead channel, and it's a former flat earther now turned glober, then he's there falling on his sword as we speak. That's the idea, to create that impression. And as I say, I don't care. Earth's measured flat. The argument was never an argument. We'll still be here. My namesake for the show will remain. Because as long as there are globe believers, then the namesake remains, because there's a perception that there's a debate. When they get here, they find out pretty quickly there isn't one. Earth's measured flat. Okay, you think it's a ball? Give us your ball measurements. How long? Give us it in microseconds before they give us a flat Earth measurement. It's pretty much immediate. Because that's what Earth measurements are. Flat. So, if you believe you're on a ball,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go on. Well, just so you know, you may not be aware, Nathan, because that's but I put a community post recently, and I asked, does anyone have evidence that they can validate of the observer's position in the Blackpool Swan photo or whatever? And all I got was a heap of rubbish back. No one came back with anything, right? I've also asked prior to that in the video, would there be anybody be willing to go and measure the height of Dow Craig from Southport with the angle, right? Now, they won't do this because to do that, it means as soon as they measure an angle, an elevation
Yeah, he's sneaky.
it's over. Right? So none of them will do it.
Of course not. Any of you just want to just toddle along and measure a little bit of flat Earth with an angle? Just a little bit of flat Earth. Just because we just want to talk about the globe after you go and measure Earth flat with that angle. I promise we'll talk about the globe after you go and measure Earth flat with that. Nothing sneaky about it.
Exactly. And I was saying, we'll see which the angle suits best, a flat or globe Earth. And I'm trying to get them to do it when they're running away. They will not do it. No, they won't do it. I said, look, just get the money together, pay some surveyors, right? Everyone will contribute to this.
How much did it cost,
I'm sure.
Brian, right? How much is a trip to here? 200 quid to England?
To England? A couple of hundred, I suppose, yeah.
A couple of £100. How about Brian? I've never met Brian, right? I'd love to go and meet Brian, but I just can't afford it. I've got to be honest, right? I'm talking about my mortgage now. I can't pay it constantly. Brian and I have never met. It'd be quite convenient if we met for various reasons that we talk about behind the scenes that I won't go into. But the point is, why don't we do it? But we'll get sponsored. Not by our own, right? We want the money from Globe Believers. Maybe from Duffy. I reckon we could do it for £2,000, right? 1% of what it costs to go to Antarctica. And we'll do just what they did.
Yeah.
We'll get a few flat Earth elevation angles to the sun while we're at it. It may not be up for 24 hours, but just one measurement to it, same as theirs in Antarctica, will show how Earth gets measured flat. Like McToon did. We'll just measure one elevation angle to the sun and say this is what he measured loads of all day. They're flat. That's an angle. Along a baseline.
Well, I've already contacted some surveyors.
Guys, it's an embarrassment. I mean, but for us not being censored, like into non-existence, fortunately, I was not dumb enough to talk about COVID. I assume you were the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't talk about it at all. I had nothing to do with it.
And it's because one reason, as much as you and Brian and I will often joke because we feel slight shame. I'm talking for you. I hope you'll agree at the end of this statement. For our minor, and I do mean minor, tendency towards conspiracies. Now, it's a folly for me and Brian. I'm speaking on his behalf. But because we do it occasionally, very, very rarely, right, we're a little bit ashamed and we'll be like, oh, we're both conspiratards. In other words, we'll overcompensate for our tiny little dipping of the toe in the water of conspiracy. But the rest of the people around us, on the whole, they're not dipping their toe in conspiracies. They're full-on conspiratards. Therefore, when something like COVID comes along, of course they're going to jump in with both feet. Of course! They all lost their channels. Now me, I'm far more hesitant. I'm a skeptic at heart, right?
Exactly. I'm the same. I knew to stay away from it. Even in 2019, I remember us telling people in 2019 to stay away from this thing. Just don't get involved in it. Don't start making videos about it. And no one listened. And some really good flat earth channels, like Red Pill Philosophy was brilliant. And he lost his channel. He had 60,000 people on a flat earth channel on YouTube in 2019 was really, really good. And he lost his channel because of the COVID. Now, in fairness, he made brilliant videos on COVID, but him and many others should have stayed away from it. And they didn't. And they lost their channels. And it was like a carrot on a stick. Do you know what I mean? Because they knew flat earthers will definitely run at this, and they did.
Well,
And it's a pity, but they did. Me and you stayed away from it. Absolutely.
Well, I don't want to pretend like because I was clairvoyant. It was because I just read the YouTube terms of service. So I have the YouTube terms of service updates to my email directly, and I read them. And it's my career. Of course I'm going to take it seriously. When they change a rule, right, and I do mean change something in the... It's a bit like in The Matrix where you see the black cat twice. You're like, oh, what's going on here then? There's been a change of rules, has there? Oh, yeah, what's this then? Okay, reading. Okay, what you're saying is don't talk about it. So this is censorship, plain and simple. Okay, I understand. If I want to keep my channel, I'll toe the frickin' line. Yeah? That's what the rule change said. No, I didn't say that. I'm obviously paraphrasing massively. I'm not even being specific. I'm still so indoctrinated to be terrified of it that I'm so vague and non-specific even now talking about it. But the point is, if you value your channel, you obey the censorship rules. And if you don't obey the censorship rules, then they've got a right to remove you because you broke the rule. Now, I told Arwin, it's a rule, Arwin. Just don't, it's a rule. It's simple. It's in the terms of service. Now, typically with Arwin, I didn't do that. I only note this specifically because he didn't lose his channel, and Arwin's a full-on conspiratard. Why didn't he lose his channel? I suspect because I damn well told him. Most of the time, I used to hint at him and try and encourage him, my father coming out in me, to go and do the research himself. Like, well, you know, maybe there might be a rule in the terms of service that would stop you from talking about those things. Maybe go and have a look. Have you looked? Have you ever read the terms of service? Things like that to try and encourage him to do it. He never did. When it came to COVID, it's one of those, like you say, double black cat moment where you go, okay, Arwin's my friend. I better just tell him outright. Like, this is a rule. Just pay heed or you'll lose your bleeding channel. It's just that simple. So when people who are like, no, right, it's more important that people should know the activism. So YouTube's yours then, yeah? You own YouTube. You don't? What are you doing then? Oh, bye-bye. Oh, it didn't take long then. You've already gone. Bye. I didn't even get a chance to suggest you had a look. But those people were never reading the terms of service to begin with. Now, one day, it'll probably be by that same sword that I die on YouTube if somebody ends up catching me out on the terms of service. You just have to try and stay ahead of the game. And they make it easy, right? They give you updates. So it's not like it's just most people go, I've got to read something. There's been a terms of service update and whatever. What? I've actually got to tick and click to say I've read it. Oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, it won't let me back in unless I do. Fine. I'll tick it and say I've read it. Like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's going to help you. Read it. Nah. Most people haven't got the time.
Oh, they won't do the thing, no. I remember specifically remember us saying to stay away from it, right? That it's a distraction from from the end goal, which is what we're doing, right? And do you think that they would listen? No, they didn't want to hear. They didn't want to listen.
You know, they called it a Black Swan event.
Yes, and they said flatten the curve. They were throwing a lot of phrases out there.
Yeah, flatten the curve. The end of COVID is on the horizon, and it's a Black Swan event.
Exactly.
I remember.
Fortunately, those rules got changed. They didn't want to, I had to be careful about it. The way I used to say it at the time was, don't meddle with current magic tricks. Yeah? And I think a fellow Irishman, what's his name? Thomas Sheridan. He's like, he would refer to needlecraft. He got away with talking about it more than anybody. And I actually, because I can't be asked to look into these things, after a certain point, you're just like, what are the draconian limitations that are being placed upon us? And how can I I remember you and I having this conversation, and how can I get away with subverting them without anyone noticing? In other words, I don't want to be a rule breaker, but I do want my kids to use the park. You know what I mean? So how am I going to get around these rules? And I remember talking about it with you, and you're like, it's very difficult. And you were saying that you've been caught by the Guardia, and you're just trying to laugh it off with them when you're out and about.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, at one point it got ridiculous because it was all in the same area, like within the same radius of 15, 20 miles, let's just say. And probably 15 miles. So you were running into the same Garda again. It's like, that's you know, again. That's what I was getting on. You don't mess up. This kind of thing. You know what I mean? Cop again. You know what I mean? They're breaking the rules.
That was it. It's the same copper.
Than straight up.
Exactly, it's the same card.
Yeah. 3 times.
I mean, I thought it was quite fun because while it was annoying watching what I saw as, I don't want to be too offensive because there might be people who are listening that are like, I did that and you were looking at me and you're like, yeah, I was, yeah. I just saw them as flapping seals, you know, and they were all clapping out 6 feet apart from each other. I felt like it was the lowest point in humanity's existence from my perspective, right? As I looked on, I'm like, my God, is this really what humanity have come to? You're so subservient that you'll do this. Oh my God. And I don't want to shame my wife, but she went out and she's like, well, I don't get to talk to the neighbours. If I don't go out, I'll just not get to talk to them. Now me, I'm quite cold. I'll be honest, I'm not that concerned about the neighbours. I was more like rolling my eyes than concerned that I hadn't spoken to them for a little while. You know what I mean? Whereas my wife, genuinely, she's quite sociable. She did actually want to go. She wasn't concerned about the 6-foot rule, but she definitely got, you know, permission from people to be out and about talking to others and seemingly breaking the rules they've arbitrarily put in place. That was the effery, I won't swear, that you observe and go, they're giving you one rule and then immediately telling you to break it. It's bizarre, but that's control. And they're just testing the limits of control. It's weird.
Control. They had people go out the window at a certain time and say a certain phrase, and people did it.
Yeah, they did that here too, about the NHS. Yeah, weird behaviour.
Yeah, it was a very dark time in human existence. It was like a kind of a jump. When I say jump, you say how high. It was basically that situation, and it was like, you know when there's a cowboy shooting at some other, and he's making someone like dance for me kind of thing, and that's what they were doing with the public, and everyone was going along with it. It was shameful. People grassing up on their neighbours when their neighbours are having a few people over for a drinks or a party or something. It was ridiculous.
They let people die alone in hospitals because they won't let my family members in to see their mother. But here's the thing, they got it going and then they had people enforcing it for them. That's how sick it really was.
Yeah, it's compliance testing or training, depending on which way you want to look at it. How compliant are they? And in terms of the positive influence that social media can have, I say positive, it's detrimental to the powers that should not be in this hypothetical example, and the powers that should not be are just us. So there's overlap. So from my memory, there was an incident where Boris Johnson and members of Parliament here in the UK were having a party during COVID lockdowns when everyone else was suffering. Why? Well, because they're no different to us. They're just part of the system that we are all part of when we are controlled by this intricate system that sometimes you can get a bit big for your boots and think that your particular aspect of lies and effery are the most important aspect of it, and they're not. Heliocentrism is just one layer of a control structure that's been layered up in multiple different ways from multiple different perspectives. And it'll have people defend that particular aspect of it, like some other different governmental aspect of control, in this case, COVID, is governed and policed by a different group of people. And sometimes there's overlap, and so it all goes on. It's a tightly weaved web that just keeps the sheeple from tearing themselves apart with mostly lies and deceit. And for the majority of the history that we've looked into, it's people with the best of intentions. We often talk about Copernicus and the Copernican heliocentric version of the world we reify, or past tense, reified, or for the sake of the namesake of flat earth debate, present tense for all the numpties out there who believe they're on a ball, they reify it in present tense. But the existence in the first instance of those reifiable entities like heliocentrism are only there because of the best of intentions for people trying to explain movements in the sky and things of that sort. Well, that's not somebody saying, I will control the people 190 years from now with a force that isn't a force, that a man will tell them they can think of as a force, called Musa. I forsake it. Go forth, O demon, make sure Musa tells them they can think of it as a force. No. They had the best of intentions, and so did Musa. But he's the modern-day version. You know, Copernicus or anybody else that's given us this nonsense world of spinning balls, after measuring Earth flat, one tiny element of a control structure that is all around us. The Matrix has got, you know, simulacra and simulation riddled through it in terms of the storytelling, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason it's good and people like it. That's predominantly why. Because when you think about how the world is structured around you, there's a reason you can have stories like 1984 and The Matrix make perfect sense. Yeah? But for the control structures around you, you'd tear yourself apart and we'd have an uncivilized society. But often when you look into those control structures, they're riddled with idiocy, nonsense, waffle, and what seems like deceit. But you get back to the overarching question. Is this done through malice? Or is this done because the guy who came up with it had the best of intentions but ultimately was just an idiot? You know, the idea that the world could be a sphere, bending the very measurement of a flat surface to give you the angle to create it, is nonsense, isn't it? Go ahead.
Wait a second. What do you mean uncivilized? So you're telling me it was an uncivilized society in the 1200s, in the 1100s, in the year 1000?
I don't know. I only have the
Who
word.
weren't on a ball then?
Yeah, but I only have the word of history for how civilized they were, and we've just discussed how uncivilized Brian and I deemed the society we cast our eyes over during COVID to be. And it was a particularly low point, I feel, a low point for several generations. I don't think anybody would disagree if they had the same onlook or outlook of the world that everyone else was blind to when it was occurring. Very uncivilized, regardless. But that seems to me that you've taken advantage of something that might keep the world from tearing itself apart and just exploited the control that you then have. And there's a delicate balance. Within those control structures, there's the ability for a man, or woman, it's just a person, to step in and start controlling massive numbers of people through whatever means they see fit. And if they're rich enough and powerful enough to step into those positions, they can manipulate the people around them with the words that they say. That's how the world runs, and nobody knows why they're even here. I had to contemplate these things recently because of my father's recent death. You suddenly start to contemplate these things. And you go, was my dad a good man? Yes, he was. Did he do bad things? Nobody's perfect, etc., etc. But then you really look at it and go, do any of us know why we're here? Not really. And when we get here, do we know what our purpose is? No. So we're all kind of ambling our way through our existence, hoping we're doing the right thing. And most of the time, we haven't got a clue. We're just guessing. You know what I mean? Now, I think it was you, Neil, that was saying that it's only the animals that know that they're, you know, created by God. We don't know that. So hence we're fumbling our way, thinking we're doing the right thing. So it makes perfect sense that we've got all these stupid, nonsensical explanations for systems that are way beyond the complexity of an existence that we could ever fathom. And every time we try and look at it, it gets more complicated the more microscopic we go in terms of how we look. It gets ever more complicated. Shouldn't that tell you something? You're never going to be able to understand it at a level that your brain could ever comprehend as an individual. Yeah? The created world that the God gave us to live in, to ponder and wander around aimlessly going, what the bloody hell am I doing here? You know, it's far too complicated for men to understand. So we create bullshit examples, nonsense waffle, to try and explain it. And then other men come along and go, I reckon I could control men with this. And so it goes on.
Exactly.
The thing is, sorry, Neil.
He was just agreeing.
No, I'm just agreeing with Nathan. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing is this, right? There's certain information concerning the world we don't have. So we end up with having only measurement to determine what the world is, right? The geometry measurement, right? Distance, etc., right? So other than that, we don't know. Like, nobody knows what the sun is, right? Anyone who thinks they do is a fool. Anyone who says they do are either a fool or they're a bullshit. right? Just that nobody knows what anything in the sky is. Nobody knows what any of these things are composed of, how they do what they do, why they're doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? Whatever. We also technically don't even know what the horizon is. We know what it's not. It's not the leading geometric edge of a globe. But that doesn't mean anything, does it? Because just when you think you have it figured out, you don't. It does something that was not part of what you expected it to do. So our knowledge of the world we live in is really just given to us by geometry and scientific method, and our detailing of natural law. After that, we're completely blind, aren't we? We don't know, like.
Yeah, whenever we get to answering a question with the scientific method, obviously it has benefited the world in terms of quantum mechanics and semiconductors and computing power and all those things that have benefited us. And obviously in medicine there's a list that's as long as your arm in terms of scientific endeavours that have benefited humanity and advanced humanity. But they're still, when you actually dice them down, very, very limited. The focus of the scientific method, the scope, is super limited because it's hyper-specific. When you ask a question about why did this specific thing occur, and you narrow it down to, for example, diffraction of light, knowledge of which path. Now, in simple English, it's very complicated. If I say the knowledge of which path causes the wave function to collapse, you go, bloody hell, what does that even mean? Well, I'm talking about the scientific endeavours to explain light diffraction. Well, what does that mean? Well, why does light break apart when it goes through a very tight gap to the point where you can see light that should just travel through a single slit and go through the other side and still be a bit of light on the other side? It doesn't. It breaks apart. That's called diffraction. And in an endeavour to try and find out why that happens, there was a scientific discovery in terms of the which path information, knowledge thereof, being the cause of the collapse of the diffraction pattern. That is to say that you can cause diffraction to not occur if you know the path of the light. Very complicated stuff that gave us our quantum mechanics and computers. But that just explained diffraction. It's a really, really, really specific part. It's not explaining light as a general, far from it. One teeny tiny little aspect of one thing light does under really specific circumstances, and just by figuring out that one tiny little thing so hyper specific within a genre of light, we got all of our technology, a lot of it, from that, just from being able to be so hyper specific. But that means it's narrow. Now that's good because you're getting answers and it's empirical. So I'm not going to knock the scientific method for its hyper specificity. But by the same token, it's really specific though, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, that means it's not broad. No. You know what I'm getting at? You can't expand that out.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't then start saying, oh, because of this, light is blah, blah, blah. You can't. You know this much about its behaviour, and that's what you know. And that allows us to do great things in our human world, but all our technology and software means nothing because we still don't have a clue what light is really.
Exactly.
And we certainly don't know what the world is, and et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. We find out a tiny piece about a tiny little specific behaviour of an entity of our world, in this case light, and it advances us by leaps and bounds. But for the guys who are doing it, they undoubtedly, as I'm going to suggest now, realise the awful truth upon these sorts of realisation. We know so little. We are so ignorant. That's what it really highlights, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that...
Sorry.
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
No, you go in here. You go in here.
Well, when we say Earth is measured flat, yeah, we know that Earth is measured flat. But in the Bible, it clearly states God questions Job and says, where were you when I measured the Earth? Tell me if you can know. So I don't think we can know just how big Earth is. And I believe that's why they put us on this freaking ball. and said, "This is where you are, and this is everything. Nothing else to see here."
They just kept finding more. If you look back at our history, no matter which way you dice it, they find more land. So they, at some point, go, well, if we find these countries and they've got more people there and they become the developing countries, formerly third world countries, often they become a bit of a problem. You have to incorporate them into the fold, and sometimes they cause trouble or unstabilise your economy. There's all sorts of things that you then have to try and mitigate for. Well, if we could just limit how much world there is, that would never happen again. We'd only have to contend with what we've already got in terms of the peoples that's provided and, the developing countries, we'll call them, rather than third worlds. People won't get suspicious because that's all we've got. That's all. It's all tied up like in the Truman Show when she pulls down the map. You don't need to be an explorer. We've already found it all. Yeah.
Yeah. The not knowing how it's not any kind of new information or anything new. This has been spoken about in this arena for a long time now, but the not knowing part terrifies people. So you have to give people the impression that we do know, and that this thing is this thing, and the Earth is this big, and this is what the Earth is, this is what the Sun is, this is how far away it is, and they're okay with the mystery about what's out there in a heliocentric universe, right? They're fine with that as long as we do know what the Earth is and what its geometry is and what the Sun is and all this. But if you take all those things away, they're not okay with the little we actually do know, which is far less than any of that, because that's only made up horse manure. The truth is we know very, very little. That terrifies people.
Right, and that's why Job 38, let me read it real quick. It says, "Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now your loins like a man, for I will demand of you, and you will answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare, if you have understanding. Who has laid the measure thereof, if you know? Or who has stretched out the line upon it, whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Where are they? Or who has laid the cornerstone thereof?" So God is basically saying, buddy, you weren't around. You have no right to speak because you're outside of my knowledge.
Gird up your loins.
Yeah.
But when I stretched, you weren't there when I stretched out the line, or that was a good,
Exactly.
that's a good part of it.
Yeah, you weren't.
You stretch a line, it only means one thing. Sorry.
I was just going to say,
Or laid the foundations.
There is a certain type of people that do the opposite, though. That's the thing. Yes, the divide is clear, right? And even as I'm about to say this, I've only just contemplated this, right? Think back to the amount of times I've said that there's a gleeful delight in me not knowing, as opposed to anti-flat earth brethren, as I compared them, who are terrified when they perceivably might not know what the sun is. It's not even that they don't know, they think they definitely do, but there's a potential that they might not, and even that limited amount of not knowing terrifies our anti-flat earth friends, doesn't it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that
Absolutely.
means that there's the people who would potentially, not me, I mean, I'm too lazy. I mean, maybe it's not lazy, I should stop being so self-deprecating, but there's something in me that likes sitting here rather than going to somewhere like Antarctica. That doesn't mean that I in any way communicate with Will Duffy. I didn't. He's just a liar. But there's a certain aspect of the journey that you could take to the so-called third worlds, where previously we found black people, we've found yellow people, we've found brown people, we've found orange people. Would we find green people if we kept on going? And therefore they've mocked it with the little green men? Because it does seem to be the case that when you travel out, you land on land and the people there have a different colour. Spanning from white through every single colour of the rainbow thus far, well, other than green. So why not pretend that if we went to outer space, we'd find the green ones, which seems logically next, right? But point to the sky and say, well, out there where the new worlds are, the light and the sky now, instead of the lands as they were formerly known, the worlds, you say, well, that's where the little green men are in the new worlds in the sky, because the lights are the land, the soil is in the sky now. Stop looking towards the horizon where we formerly found land. If you want more land, there's a limitation to our spherical surface, therefore look to the sky, and then you have to create narratives about men in the sky, and what kind of men are they? Next colour in line, green.
Yeah, it's I think we're dealing with a lot of people on our opposing side who are the type of people who want to be know-it-alls. They want to be telling people what this thing is and that thing is and how this works and how that works.
No, that's not it. Have you not met Craig? He's quite humble. Craig McNeil.
Yeah, that's the thing, you see. Oh, they're not humble. They want to be telling everyone else what is what, and this is this and that is that, etc. And when you start taking all that stuff that they want to use as knowledge that props them up in society or in the eyes of the ignorant as being the know-it-alls or the knowledgeable ones, you take away that power, and that's what's happening. No. So if Craig has to accept at any point, just use Craig McNeil as an example, if he has to accept at any point that all the information we were given concerning the sun is a load of lies and nobody actually knows anything about it, straight away that's a whole chunk of knowledge that he can't then use to prop himself up in the eyes of whoever. So it's nearly, to admit that we don't know what the sun is for him means that he has to actually then take willingly leave go of some of the power that he feels he has. And that's it. Because let's be honest. Go on.
Well, the only bit that you were vague about was that for someone else, and again, it always comes back to this, right? So we'll keep on. I was going to start widening the net and talking about Professor Dave Explains or Simon Dan, just so it's not like we're picking on Craig. So I'd rather do that because I don't want to be perceived to be picking on Craig, because I don't want to, right? Yes, it's fun for a few minutes, but that's not the objective here. The guys that want to prop themselves up because they're terrified of not knowing. So we're talking about Simon Dan, Craig McNeil. Give me another one just so we've got three.
MC Toon,
Professor Dave Explains. All of these people. They're going to have to. I've forgotten my point now. Now I've tried to get a third person. Where was I bloody going with this?
You were saying I was okay on it, but I was vague about one point I was saying concerning them having to
yes.
power.
Exactly. That person is themselves. So most people don't realise this because falsely, if you're listening, right, if you're the audience member, I'm talking to you, right, you think everyone around you is concerned about what you do, and you're wrong. They don't care. I'll give you an example, and I'll use me as a self-deprecating example. So, for example, there's songs made about me and where are the guns? So there's two ways you could look at that. You could look at it in a sort of narcissistic, well, everyone loves me, they're all talking about me kind of way, and you'd be wrong. Or you could look at it that, they're all, laughing at me because they think I thought there was guns going to stop them from going on their very highly organised trip to measure Earth flat. Therefore, everyone's talking about how stupid Nathan Oakley is when they do the Where is the Gun song, right? Wrong again. Nobody gives a shit about me. Most people aren't giving me a second thought, and it's only when I'm literally in front of them, like now when I'm broadcasting, that they'll even give me a second thought. Once the show's over, no one's thinking about Nathan Oakley. I mean, they might ponder me for half a second, but then they've got something far more important to deal with than me. And do you know what that is? Themselves. Everyone is the star in their own little performance. Now, you started with Craig as the example, so we'll get back onto him. And I don't want to pick on you, Craig, if you end up listening to this. It's not, you just happen to be the example, right? When Craig is like, well, if I don't know what the sun is, then I'm not going to be able to lord it over next man when I'm talking about the sun, because I won't know what it is. It's like, no, understand this, Craig, in this example, or anybody else, Simon Dan, right? Nobody cares whether or not you know, because to them, they're the star of their show, and they're worried that you're thinking about them. Yeah? As opposed to the other way around. They're not thinking about you and whether or not you know about the sun. They're worried about what you think about them, because they're the star of their own show and all they're thinking about is themselves while you babble on about the sun. Worried about whether or not you're going to get to lord it over them, because you're the star of your own show and the only person you get to lord it over really is yourself. It ain't a dress rehearsal. This is the show and there's no other person in your head, just you. So when you perceive that you need to lord it over people with this knowledge, in this case the sun, you don't. It's irrelevant. Who cares? Nobody is the answer. And when I say there's a hidden hand, who's the hidden hand? Well, who was the one who kept the system alive in terms of a perpetuation of something that didn't benefit me when it came to heliocentrism? Me. Yeah, you could argue that the propaganda was always there, and I can blame the poster maker for the globe Earth when it's the blue marble Planet Earth documentary that David Attenborough was in, or the producers of the flick when it's Superman flying around the sphere Earth. I could blame all them and their perceived propaganda, but it's not beneficial to me. It's my narrative in my world that I'm concerned about. Surely I should have given it more attention. I didn't, because it wasn't threatening me at the time, or something I could eat, or something I could produce children with. Not to be too crude. So therefore I didn't worry too much. Now notice on that list Craig wasn't on it. Yeah? So therefore I didn't give Craig much thought in those things, very basic that they were. Yeah? Threat, food, or a mate. Yeah? Where's Craig in that? Nowhere. So did it matter that Craig didn't know what the sun was in that simple equation of me and how important I am in my own little play that I'm the star of?
No.
No. Dead.
Well, the thing is this, right? See, the problem we have with our opposition is, if we just take that one example, doesn't matter who it is. I use Craig as the example, as Craig likes to be an know-it-all, right? The thing is this: if he had to admit to himself that there's even a chance that they have it completely wrong concerning the sun and what it is and how it does what it does and what it's composed of, then every other part of heliocentrism, as far as not the globe itself, but every other part of the sky, besides the moon and some of the planets and things, are up for grabs. Because all of their rhetoric concerning stars is all based on their original star, which is, in their world, the sun. Now, the sun and the stars are not the same thing, right, from our point of view, but they've turned them into the same thing. So straight away, it's not just that he has to then admit to himself that he doesn't know what the sun is. He then has to admit that all their claimed knowledge about stars and what they are and what they're composed of, because there's always a knock-on effect in that world, in their paradigm. You can't admit that you don't know about something or that something was wrong without there being a knock-on effect in some other part when it comes to something like that. So it's like, if I admit to this, then there's a whole kind of like domino effect that'll happen. You know, it's like with the black swan, right? The black swan. As soon as they admit they understand the black swan, that's the end of every part of heliocentrism, because it all starts and ends with the Earth being a globe, and that ends the Earth being a globe. So everything ends from that. So that's like the original domino. If we see it that way. Now the sun is not the original domino, but for them to admit that they don't know what the sun is, or there's something wrong in their knowledge, or they got it all wrong, and they were wrong to say it was composed of hydrogen and helium plasma, etc., etc., etc. Suddenly, that means all their other claimed knowledge and expansions of that claimed knowledge that NASA and everyone else would pump out, all that has to be wrong as well, because it's all based off of the sun. The same way as the distances to all their celestial body, all their stars, as all starts and ends with their distance to the sun, which actually starts with a claimed distance to Venus, which starts with the pre-assumption that Venus is a sphere and Earth, and which starts with the pre-assumption that Earth is a sphere, which starts with the pre-assumption that Earth is a sphere of a particular size. So it's a few dominoes in.
Yeah. You haven't gone back far enough, because that all starts with a flat Earth measurement.
It does originally. See that like that originally it starts with that. But what I'm saying is that I'm not going back to the first domino with the sun. But the sun is only a few dominoes in. So say if they start going, we're wrong about the sun, then that means they're wrong about a whole lot of other stuff because they built a lot of what they would call knowledge based off of what they believed the sun was and how far away it was.
I'll acknowledge your point first before I do that next time. Yes, even though, as you put it, the sun is a few dominoes in from the flat Earth prerequisite that will lead to the sun in that line of dominoes, the dominoes that follow that sun domino are tremendously long, and there's a lot of them that they'd have to immediately concede based on them not knowing what the sun is. Now, I'll come back to my original point, which is, I think that's wonderful. It makes me feel like a little kid when you go, well, what is it then? I don't know. Maybe I'll be the one to find out. That's pretty exciting. I'm going to round out shortly, though. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before I do?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to throw in just that was why I was saying that. For you and me, we can go, actually, we're wrong. We don't know what that is. And it doesn't end up with the collapse of a load of dominoes. It just means we don't know what that is. For them, they can't do that because it means a lot of dominoes are going to fall.
Right. The majority of the heliocentric model, now that they've scaled it, at least in modern times, is dependent on them knowing what the sun is and how far it is in that heliocentric version of the world that does span from an origination of a flat Earth angle measurement to the sun to create that domino, a few dominoes along, that then moves on to, equatorial planes in motion around the sun. So you need AU, you need the scaling factor, you need Copernicus, you need Huygens, you need Kepler, and all of those dominoes are dependent on knowing what it is. If you don't, and you accept that, you're like, well, then you essentially are writing off everything that you currently have on the table, and you're good with that, right? Well, obviously not, because they don't want to give up a damn thing, do they? So, any more for any more?
Hold on.
Go on.
Yeah, we as flat earthers come in and knock down all the dominoes.
Yeah. Any more for any more? Any notes from Discord before we round out the live show? Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, just on exactly what Neil said, exactly. We actually come in and we knock over the first one, and then they all fall after. And that's the problem. We bring them back to the very first one and show them that that's on shaky ground. And that's the problem. Thank you.
Any words from Discord before I do round out? No? A huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and all that good stuff. If you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video. Shout out to Chow Yun Cat, who gifted memberships right at the end of the live stream. Really appreciate the support. And there was another super chat that I did miss earlier on from... I won't load on my live stream. Don't mind. Stay tuned if you're watching on after the show.